Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the Chicago Architecture Center, I'm very pleased to introduce Jeanne Moutoussamy-Ashe and Michelangelo Sabatino, who will be in conversation today around the life and work of Jeannie's late father, architect John Moutoussamy. We came to the idea for this interview by way of Michelangelo's new book, Modern in the Middle, which profiles some of the modernist residential designs of John Moutoussamy here in Chicago. So today's conversation will cover this and more, with the benefit of Jeannie's unique insights and memories of growing up in Chicago before vaulting onto the international stage herself as a renowned photographer.
Well, thank you, Ian, for the kind introduction, and I'm super excited to have this conversation today with Jeanne Moutoussamy-Ashe, who I met while I was doing research for our co-authored book, Modern in the Middle of Chicago Houses, 1929 to 75. As we know, our friend Lee Bay has also recently published a book on the South Side. And so a number of folks had begun to sort of point some attention to this part of Chicago. And we did our share in trying to identify important but not researched houses. So enter Jeannie, who was kind to respond to an email. And from there, she sort of put some of her own photos to use. And so my question to you, Jeannie, is what was it like growing up on the South Side neighborhood of Chatham in a house your father designed?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Michelangelo, for the work that you've done on these little known history of these wonderful houses on the South Side of Chicago, all over Chicago. But when you think of Chicago, you think of high rises, and that you focused, you and Susan Benjamin focused on the Chicago homes that are so special and unique to Chicago itself, as are its skyscrapers. It's a wonderful appreciation and has certainly focused my attention more on my dad. And I can't think of a better place to have my attention focused because I was very fond of my dad and took a lot from him in terms of my own work. So we were living on the South Side of Chicago. And so often my father would drive over to watch during the construction of the house how things were going along. And I remember playing with my middle brother, Claude, at the site, at the construction site, which we were very careful and very well supervised, not just by my father, but by the contractors who were there as well. But, it was just at that time, I think I turned 4 once the house was built. So I have few memories, but I just remember being in awe of this huge structure that was going up and the process of it going up. And going through that experience with my father being right there, while I didn't know the import of it all at that age, it was certainly, imprinted on my mind.
So the house he graduated from IIT in 1948, thanks to the GI Bill. And so the house was completed in 1954. So he was a young family, and your mom, Elizabeth, was at some point also a graduate of Harrington Institute of Interior Design. So there was an artistic family all in one place. Now, did you recall visiting any other buildings that your father designed? Or, for example, do you recall ever visiting the IIT campus where those buff bricks that were used for your home in Chatham were everywhere?
It's true about the bricks. I did not actually visit as a young child, but I was very much made aware of my dad's alma mater. And as we passed it on the Dan Ryan, or if we were driving around that area for whatever reason, my father would always point out IIT and talk about it, specifically with my older brother, who was 8 years older than me. We started it, and my father started the house in 1953. And by the time we were coming towards the end of the house, I very much had this clear image of it, as I did of IIT, because of the significance that my father placed on the school, on the institution, the structures on the campus. I know that anywhere. I've seen it all of my life. So very, very fond memories associated with that. And mind you, not just as an architectural institution, but the buildings itself, the architecture itself is seared in my mind. The visual representation of IIT is always in my mind. And that it makes it unique to me.
Interesting, because as you know, the Institute of Design, who had a huge sort of very influential program, photography, was co-hosted in Crown Hall for many years. So this is a little bit of a sort of association of two important towers of Chicago. Of course, the Mies van der Rohe designed 860-880 in a photo by Richard Nickel, and then a front sort of page of an article, Architecture New Wave, published in Ebony, 1971 June, where your father is standing proud against the background of Lawless Gardens. So I seem to recall that at some point you and your family lived in Lawless Gardens. Is that correct?
No, actually, possibly my middle brother lived in Lawless Gardens for a brief period of time. And I know that I had an aunt who lived in the building. So I visited the building, but I never lived there.
I see.
Personally, right. But definitely had family members, one family member who lived there.
Great. And so this was the firm of Dubin Dubin Black Moutoussamy. And just for our readers to know, the archives of the firm are located at the Art Institute in the Ryerson and Burnham libraries. And I believe, Jeannie, that you have had some interaction with the curators at the Art Institute about your father's archives?
Well, thanks to you, because of your book, I have been acquainted with the new archivists that are at the Art Institute now, and were not there at the time that my father's drawings and some of his archives were placed at the Art Institute. So it's been great to have a relationship with this new generation of archivists there.
So these are two great images of the Johnson headquarters here in Chicago. To the left is an image taken by the very important firm of Hedrick Blessing, black and white, as was their usual, at least until later in their career. And to the right is a beautiful photo taken by Lee Bay of the fabulous test kitchen. So just a couple of questions for you, because from a point of view, my view of this, the interiors and the building, there's a wonderful sort of contrast between a kind of more stoic exterior to the public facade, and then a much more personal and kind of nuanced interior for the staff and folks working at Johnson. So I wonder if you might speak to this building, if you had any experiences in it, or what you think of it.
Yeah, actually, there's so much. At the top of my mind, I think what a wonderful collaboration between John Johnson and my father, and they were friends. So it's really a collaboration of the two. It's my father's architectural DNA, and it was John Johnson's idea of how he wanted his company portrayed, not just Johnson Publishing Company, but all of the employees, because he was very close to his employees and he cared a great deal about how his business worked. And so I think this was a collaboration between what Mr. Johnson communicated to my father and what my father was able to communicate with all of the other parties involved in the construction of the building, including the interior design, which had a lot of purpose in addition to the facade of the building. So that's, I think, a terrific tribute to the collaboration of John Johnson and my father as the architect.
With Reiser and Elrod as the interior architects that were
absolutely. And I have to say that I just remember my father speaking so fondly of Reiser and Elrod, the team that did the interior of the building, how much he enjoyed working with them, that they were able to communicate his ideas and his vision and Mr. Johnson's vision in getting this place done. And you can see by the wonderful photograph, even if this was in black and white, you have a sense of time and a sense of place. That even though now that it's, you're seeing it in color, you get the sense of the color and how that added and spoke to the time and place. But without the color, it still accomplishes that goal.
So you mentioned Jeannie, your father's friendship with Johnson. Here we see him together on the right, and also another view with Jesse Jackson prominently in the middle, sort of so perhaps you might speak to these two images, or?
I love the image on the left, the black and white image, Jesse Jackson and a dashiki, if that doesn't tell you about the times. And the two women that are the pillars in the image were both employees. And I remember the one on the right rather well. But this was taken the day of the opening of the Johnson Publishing building back in 1972, I believe it was. And for those people who actually recognize, and I don't know if you do, Michelangelo, but to my father's left, so second to on the right side of the image, the second in, that gentleman is actually Dick Gregory. There were a lot of people who came to the opening, a lot of celebrities, because this building was monumental for many reasons. But so many people showed up, and I did attend this opening and have very fond memories. You'll have to remind me to share you a picture of my mother asking me to take a picture of Sammy Davis Jr. giving her a hug, and I still have that. I still have that image. But one of the things that was so outstanding in the building, as well in the interiors, was the magnificent Johnson art collection, which was interspersed throughout the building itself. But you walked in to the building, you were greeted with this exterior of this ladder-like facade climbing up into this building with magnificent African-American art. And this picture just shows you how proud everyone was of this. This was an accomplishment in 1972. And while there's a lot of history that can be told from this building, and actually each person who's in that photograph, I think that speaks to the importance of what that meant to the African-American community at that time, and still does today.
So enough about your father. What about you? And so I know that you had two creative parents, mom and dad. So I wonder if you can explain a little bit your own trajectory. I know you went to Cooper Union, and so perhaps you can take us from Chicago to New York and anywhere else you'd like.
Well, I don't think we have that much time, but for your architectural audience, I think that to have picked this image to show the Taj Mahal, which is an architectural wonder, in contrast to this young child, this young girl who's standing in the foreground, as the difference, as you had pointed out before, Michelangelo, between the social the haves and the have-nots in India, and it speaks to its caste system. But it does speak to my work, what is inherent in my work, and that is this heavy social context that tends to exist in the work that I do. And I do think that very much came from growing up in the city of Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, with two very creative parents. And again, to your architectural audience, the idea of light, which is everything to a photographer, as I've grown in my own work, understanding the importance of light to architecture with the help of Louis Kahn, and understanding the importance of that. I just wish today that I could have that conversation with my father.
Great. And the next and final image also brings us to a place, this time in America. And I wonder if you might speak about this important project in your career.
This has been a lifelong project. And while I've done lots of projects throughout my career now, this one I started in 1977. And the young girl that you see on the left, her oldest daughter graduated from college just a couple of years ago, just to give you some time frame. But it sort of speaks to the project itself. It's about memory, it's about place, it's about preservation. And having worked on this project, which I began in 1977, on and off this Daufuskie Island that I visited over a period of 5 years, this was what the island looked like. The residents at the time in 1977, there were about 80 direct descendants of slaves who actually they were land rich, owned this land on the island. And I got there to begin photographing the island and the people, who are known as the Gullah Geechee culture, at a time just before development began, I'd say in 1982. So while I was there, I had kind of a picture of what was to come. I saw people coming in offering $1,000 an acre to some of these families, which to them was a lot of money back then, but they were land rich. And, today that land has been sold for as much as $100,000 per acre. So the transformation, I was very much privy to. I felt a tremendous responsibility to record the life of the Gullah Geechee people, but also this particular community, because there was of all the Sea Island, of all the Sea Islands themselves, Daufuskie Island had no bridge linking it to the mainland, and it still doesn't today, which is what makes it so unique. But also at that time, historically, it allowed the people to be able to thrive as a culture without too much interference of, Western culture at that time, to really take over the people in the land, which is completely changed now. It's completely developed. So it's an important project. It's an important project that the kids who are the legacy kids of what was Daufuskie Island are still living. Their kids are being formally educated. They are doing well. They are making lives for themselves, and some of them even coming back after their education to work within the community to try and preserve the culture.
Well, thank you, Jeannie. And I think this is a great place to end. Of course, folks that are joining us might go to your newly launched website to see all your good work. And with that, I would like to thank our audience for this, for your attention, and we hope that we will build on the knowledge around Chicago's and America's and beyond Black architects as we expand research and resources available for this research. Thank you very much.
Thank you.